So here is the baby powder. Johnson & Johnson says we've got hundreds of tests that show there's no asbestos in it. Now, the tests have a problem, in my opinion. The sensitivity meter on the transmission electron microscope as well as the polarized light microscopy will not adequately detect the presence of asbestos on at least polarized light microscopy unless it is present to 0.1% or greater. Now, does any of that make sense to you? Oh, it will to some of you who've tried asbestos cases. But you're going to, Kirker's got it. But you're going to have to figure out, oh, what? Okay, and think it through. So what I've got to do is explain that to a jury. Now, my jury, I've got an MBA. I've got a master's degree scientist, works for DuPont. I've got a legal assistant at a defense firm. I've got financial analyst. I've got a computer programmer. But I've also got some people with not a lot of academic experience. So I've got to explain why my tests show asbestos and theirs don't. And so here's how I do it through cross-examination. Ladies and gentlemen, or Mr. Witness, I think it was a fella. Are you familiar with this? Yes. This is a bathroom scale, isn't it? Yes. We can put it on the Elmo here. Let's see if we can put it on the Elmo. And we can push down on it to engage it and get it primed. There it is at 0. Do you see that? Yes. Might need to take the light off, make it show better. There. 0. Yes. Okay. It may go off in a minute. I may have to do it again. Meanwhile, here is a needle. You see this needle? Yeah. This is like an asbestos needle. You with me? Yeah. I mean, would it help you? Do you have any doubt whether or not that's a needle? No doubt at all. I mean, look, I can zoom in on it. That's a needle, right? Look. Bam, 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 bam. Needle. Here, watch. Bam! Whoops. Bam! Needle. Right through. Bam. See that? Yeah. Bam! Look. You see the needle holes. Look at the needle holes. Look. See them? Needles. Needle. You got it? Got it. Okay. Now, I want to know if I've got a needle. So I'm going to take these scales. Let me get them to 0. I'm going to put a needle on there. Is there a needle on there? Well, I said, no, just look. Does it show a needle? Well, no. Maybe, look. Maybe it takes more than one needle. Let's get it back on. Let's put on 2 needles. Whoa, is there a needle on there? No? All right, let's try 3. Heck, let's put all of the needles on there. Let's get some more needles. Let's put on a pin. Oh, hold on. Stay with me, Scales. Let's put on a pin. Let's put on another couple of pins. Heck, let's put on a lot of pins. Let's put on my glasses. Finally, no, still nothing. If I'm using this scale, you'll never know that you can tell the world. Ain't nothing on that scale. Because the scale's not sensitive enough to pick up the needles we're weighing. I rigged the test. Now, there is such a thing as a sensitive scale. There is what's called a jeweler's scale. You familiar with that, Mr. Witness? Yes. Let's put the jeweler's scale up here. The jeweler's scale, we'll turn it on. Here we go. All right. It's coming to 0. Let's get it to 0. Are we able to see the 0 on there? No, not really. Let's try this with the light. Well, that's absolutely useless as well. I had a different Elmo, and I had checked the Elmo out in trial, and the Elmo was good. And the Elmo would show this very well. This one doesn't. Trust me, it says 0. You got another? That's all right. You can see the 0 on it? Okay. You put that on? That's all right. And now you've got 0.072 just from one needle. It picks it up. Look, you put 2 needles on there, and it goes from 0.071 to 0.14, 1.15. It picks it up. If you use the right scale, you can find the asbestos needles. Y'all just used the wrong scale. Now, when you do it that way, the jury understands. You've got a demonstrative that explains you had to have a sensitive enough test. The bad guys replied and said, oh yes, but we had another scale that was more sensitive. We used what's called the electron microscope, TEM, trans-electron microscope. And I said, yeah, but the TEM trans-electron microscope uses such little amounts of product that you don't get enough to really examine. Now, how am I going to demonstrate that to the jury? What's worse is I've got to show the jury the right way to do the test. The right way to do the test is to basically take the baby powder, a lot of it, put it into a liquid that has a certain weight, and put it into a centrifuge that spins it around, that will send the asbestos to one end, and then the talc to the other end, and you can pull the asbestos out then and put it under the microscope if it exists, under the electron microscope. But how am I going to explain that to the jury? They'll be sound asleep, much less cross-examine a witness on it. So when he said that, I said, yeah, I said, what you did there is what we have over here. And I had this under counsel table with plastic, so nobody knew what it was until I ripped the plastic off. And I put the bale of hay up on counsel table. And I said, sir, let's talk about your electron microscope, your other sensitive test. I said, it's basically one where you're trying to find a needle in the haystack. And the way you test it is by saying, well, let me get a little bit of that haystack and look at it under the microscope. And you take just an itsy witsy bitsy bitsy piece and you look at it. You go, well, I wouldn't call it an itsy bitsy witsy bitsy piece. I said, well, I would. Let's do the math together. 1 jar of baby powder. If we take the itsy bitsy witsy mitsy piece that you measure and we deduct it from this jar, we can figure out, based on your 50 years of testing, how often do y'all test an entire jar, just one jar of baby powder? Well, I haven't done the math, he said. Well, I have, I said. Let's do it together. You test 0.0003 grams each time. Yes. So we write it down on our little Elmo, 0.0003 times. Now, how many grams are in here? We do all of the math. Bottom line is he's got to admit to me to test one entire jar based upon their testing protocol takes 600,000 years. And I said, so y'all can either test such a little amount that you'll never find anything because you just broke off a tinsy-wincy, linsy-binsy piece of the hay when you're trying to find the needle, or you could do another method. It's called the pre-concentration method. And it's roughly equivalent to this. We're going to take this hay and break the bundle. We're going to put it in a bathtub or an area of water. And all of the hay is going to float to the top. And if there are any needles, they'll all go to the bottom. So once we do that, we just need to go drain the bottom or scoop the bottom of residue and put that residue under a microscope. We can see if there are needles. That's what my scientist did, and he's finding asbestos in 70% of these baby bottles. That's the test that the company was told in 1973 by the Colorado School of Mines was, quote, essential, close quote, to answering the question. Because the Colorado School of Mines told Johnson & Johnson, and I'm laying the documents down there, it's essential, it's the only way you will find a needle in the haystack. That's their document. And the company said, well, we're not going to do that. That's not in the worldwide economic interest of the company. Of course, they don't want people to know.